So this bike kind of came out of nowhere and actually surprised me a little bit, and it's got some features that I think are going to be really nice. It's the new Arctic Leopard XE Pro S. All right, Arctic Leopard XE Pro, first ride here. It's got 4 ride modes. I'm in the 4th top ride mode right now, and we're clearly starting out on the trail here, and we're doing that for a reason. But yeah, I'm riding in the highest power mode right now on this bike, and yeah, it rips pretty good. But there's one glaring thing, and I noticed it before I got on the bike, but I wanted to ride here real quick and verify if what I'm about to say is correct. Been doing this long enough to kind of know just by looking at a bike. So the stance of this bike actually looks way better than a lot of the other bikes in this category, which was refreshing to see. But just like the Ventus One Plus, it has such a tiny little front tire. Not much sidewall. Also makes the front end a little bit low. And that was one thing I noticed. One thing that we immediately changed on the Ventus One Plus. And also another thing we changed on the Ventus One Plus were the handlebars. Yeah, I'm deflecting like crazy with this front tire. So this thing, has to change. Tires and controls are so important. It really affects how a bike feels. And this thing needs some love in those categories. I'll be honest, I've been historically not the biggest fan of Arctic Leopard bikes, but this one feels like it's gonna be a good one. I've already got a lot of good things to say about this bike, but there's 2 things that are really preventing me from getting into the flow on this bike. Handlebars. They feel narrow and tall, which feels really awkward when you're trying to throw the bike around. So that's one thing I want to change. And this front tire is not going to cut it. It is so much smaller than the rear. It has very minimal sidewall and not an aggressive tread pattern. So we got to do something about that, because up here on these trails, having that grip is really going to change the way that the bike feels. And when I'm hitting rocks and stuff, I'm really feeling it through the front end because there isn't much cushion on that front tire. So let's make those changes, get back out on this thing, and then we can properly talk about it. All right, so we're back in action now with the Dunlop MX-34 on the front and some Warp 9 3-inch rise handlebars. Bike's looking good now. Definitely a meatier front tire. Gonna gain about 1 inch of sidewall with this tire, and obviously much better knobby. So let's go ride it and find out. All right, so I'm not a big NFC key or regular key person because I always forget that stuff. So just gonna put in the code here. All right, bike's unlocked. Let's go. We're going sport mode. All right, we are at the sand track right now. I was gonna take it back up in the mountains, but we got a bunch of rain over the last few days, and this track is super fun after it rains. So that's what we're gonna do today. Put this bike in a different environment too. Oh, the mud. Got some big machines out here right now. All right, handlebars make such a big difference, guys. I know I am picky about that, but this bike feels so much better with some wider bars on it. We're probably not gonna be riding this track much more this year, but after it rains, it's a sand track, it's super fun. So I wanna take advantage of it. Get the bike out here. I did notice there are some people that were upset that we modified the Ventus 1 Plus for our first ride review. And I gotta say, it's just what we would do to the bike, man. Like, we wanna test these bikes, ride them a little bit harder, and you gotta make some changes to be able to do that. To me, this bike is riding much better now. That's fun. So I am trying to find the most affordable way to update the front end on this bike. Same with the Ventus 1 Plus. Ideally, yeah, you can put a 21 on it. I think a lot of people will do that if you're riding off-road. But just putting a better front tire on this bike will make a huge difference. Oh, man. It's fun and challenging riding these small bikes in this deep sand terrain. But yeah, man, this bike feels really good. I gotta say, when I hopped on this the first time, I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. I know I mentioned it before. I haven't always been the biggest fan of Arctic Leopards, but this bike just kind of feels different to me. It feels like it's got a really good stance for a small bike. It doesn't feel as low in the front. The bike just feels bigger, which is a positive. Still, I want a little more height in the front. I'm the biggest broken record on that topic, but I'm just being honest. But out of all the bikes, like this definitely feels a little bit bigger, which is nice. It's got the full-size seat, also really nice. But yeah, in terms of power on this bike, it is using Far Driver software for the controller. Hasn't historically been my favorite, but the two bikes that have changed my feelings on it have been the Ventus 1 Plus and now this Arctic Leopard XE Pro S. Throttle feels actually really good on it. Better than a lot of stock bikes, I'll say that for sure. And there's a lot of tuning opportunity with the Far Driver app. So you can dig in there and you can unlock the full power of this bike. So Arctic Leopard XE Pro S, a ton of different tuning options on this bike with the Far Driver app. That's really cool. Suspension actually feels pretty good on this bike. It's pretty stiff, which is nice. The bike feels pretty well balanced. Yeah, I'd still do something about the front end. You don't have to. This is just me being a nitpicky off-road rider. And on that note, we gotta be realistic with what we're getting here, guys. I talk about these bikes, and I talk about how I would improve certain things and what could make them better. And the reaction is always, well, I'm spending $5,000, the bike should be perfect. Man, welcome to the dirt bike world. Bikes that are $10,000 aren't perfect. And most dirt bikes are $10,000, so if you're new to dirt bikes, then welcome. But it's part of the industry, okay? And we gotta realize that these are Chinese-made play bikes. The problem is they're super fast, and there is a ton of potential to ride them harder. And so that's what we always look to when we're reviewing them. So please know that none of these bikes are perfect out of the box. None of them, not one. In the electric world, the only dirt bike that I think is pretty much perfect right out of the box is a Stark Varg. That bike is $10,000 and it was formerly $15,000. So let's be realistic with these things. They're all pretty amazing for the price. I'm just telling you how I would make them better. For $5,000 to $6,000, all of these bikes are amazing. But they are play bikes and they are Chinese bikes. And by nature, the price point that they are, they're gonna require a little bit of modification if you're trying to ride them off-road. It's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. All right, sorry for the mini rant there, but back to the review. Arctic Leopard XE Pro S. Pretty darn impressed, man. One thing I noticed in the beginning, and one thing I'm definitely noticing right now, is my boot keeps getting hung up on this plastic on the side. I do think it's cool that they put that on there. It makes it a little wide in the midsection, but I don't mind that part of it as much. I just wish that if it's gonna be wide, let's make it a little wider up near the knees so you can squeeze with it. And it kind of just ends a little abruptly, so my boot is getting caught on it. And it's not crazy terrible, but it's definitely happening. So I like what they're going for, adding some plastics, kind of like they did with the Alta Sigma. I think having a plastics option for these bikes is great for aesthetics, one, and having somewhere to grip the bike, two. I don't know what you could do about those plastics, but you know, it is a first iteration of this bike. Something I'm noticing. I think they made the right tire choice for this bike by going with like kind of this dual sport dirt tire for what I'm riding right now. And honestly, what I was riding up in the mountains, I would prefer a knobby on the rear as well. The MX-34 is a nice addition to the front, but yeah. So this seat is definitely nice to have. I feel like I can sit down towards the front of the bike in a corner and really get my weight forward. A lot of these bikes don't have that. Like right here. Yeah, man, that's great. Here again. That's fun. Bike is super quiet. It's got a gearbox. Love it. Let's get more gearbox bikes. So yeah, gearbox is super nice. This bike is quiet. No belt drive to worry about. I like that a lot. And speaking of the rear end, that's a fun corner on this thing right now. Speaking of the rear end, like this swing arm, I gotta take a measurement on it because I'm not sure, but it feels longer and it looks longer too. So the bike feels pretty stable in the rear as a result, which is a good thing, but I knew that was gonna happen. So this is a post mount stem. It is not direct mount to the triple clamp here, and I almost put one on yesterday, but I didn't. And what happens, you can see the bars are bent right now. It's just twisted in the clamp. I could hear it when I went down. If I twist it, I can get it back to center, but that right there is a reason why it's good to go with a direct mount stem, and probably the next upgrade that we're going to do to this bike. So when you crash, your bars don't twist. All right, we're back in action. No worries. So this is one of those environments where, yep, putting the Dunlop is a big help. I can't imagine what riding out here would be like on the stock tire, but this is 21-inch front territory here. Got ruts, sand, big braking bumps, accelerating bumps, rollers, and it's soft, which is why I wanted to ride out here, because it's hard. Looking for a challenge today. We're getting one. So swing arm on this bike definitely feels longer. Because it's got a longer swing arm, it does feel like it could benefit from a higher front end. Kind of reminds me a little bit. I'm gonna go back into the archives here, see if you guys were followers from long ago, but gonna go back into the archives, talk about a bike think we call it the Suron Beast. And we put the EBMX swing arm on that bike. And we were running the Fast Ace fork with that at the time. And the bike felt like super burly in the rear. It was definitely longer in the rear, and it made it feel kind of like, I don't know, short, stubby in the front. I'm not saying that this bike feels like that, but if there's something I can compare it to, it's kind of that. So I think when you put a longer travel front end on, or a drop crown in this instance, or a drop crown with a 21, I think it'll balance the bike out a little bit better. That's what I'm expecting to happen on this Arctic Leopard here. It feels fine, it feels good. I'm just thinking, if we do it, when we try it, I have a prediction that it's gonna balance this bike out a little bit better. The other thing that was a good call by Arctic Leopard was to add these battery supports. I've only got one in right now because honestly having trouble getting the second one to fit, but one is enough. Helps to keep that battery from rattling around, and if you remember any of our feedback from the other Arctic Leopards is that they do have a bit of battery rattle, so this actually completely stops it. Man, this bike's actually really impressing me. I wasn't sure what to think of it. It did impress me when I saw it in person the first time. It wasn't what I was expecting it was gonna be like. And now I'm riding it and I'm like, yeah, man, they actually did a really good job with this bike. I like the size of it. The power feels appropriate, feels really good. It's nice that you can tune this thing. I like the seat. I like that it's direct drive. I like that it's quiet. I like that it's got this longer swing arm. Overall, yeah, pretty good bike, and like honestly at a pretty good price too. And if you know Arctic Leopard, man, they've won every battery shootout that we've done that has had an Arctic Leopard in it. We will do a proper battery range test with all the small bikes, this one included, and we'll see where this bike stacks up. But I'm anticipating that it's gonna be a front runner in the battery range test too. So yeah, I could see this bike doing really well in the shootout, and honestly, probably really good in the battery range test too. Arctic Leopard XE Pro S, honestly, this is a bike that surprised me. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I've not had the best opinions of Arctic Leopards in the past. This bike's actually really different. I am pretty surprised with it. It's a really good machine. I'm excited to put more seat time on it, but there's a lot of benefits to this bike. It definitely feels bigger. The chassis feels a little bit longer. You got a full-size seat. Power feels really good. Suspension feels stiff. Some other tweaks that I'd like to make. Still trying to figure out what would be best. This bike kind of feels like it might be more conducive to a 21 and a drop crown. And so we might go that direction. But all in all, I think this is actually a really good contender in the lightweight category. It's nice that they thought of some features like adding the brace for the battery. You're not getting any of that battery rattle that is really common in these bikes. One downside, I do like the plastics on this bike, but man, you could take a look at this right here. This is just one ride right here. Look how scuffed up that is. That is not a good look. You're probably gonna have to run some graphics or something on here to cover that up, and maybe that'll help, but that's really where you squeeze with these little bikes, and so that stuff is pretty scratched up. That's one thing that, you know, just be aware of. I definitely think that putting different bars and putting that front tire on was a necessary upgrade for this bike if you're riding off-road. Maybe a little bit more can be done. Kind of like how we did to the Ventus. I didn't want to get too carried away on this. There was a lot of haters when we modified the Ventus in that video, so I was trying to keep it as stock as possible. But realistically, I would want to raise that front end up a little bit more. Maybe put a 21 on it, maybe a drop crown as well. And then the tires, I think the tire choice is really good if you're looking for an all-around tire, something that you can ride on-road and off-road. But realistically, we're going to ride this bike off-road, and it needs more of a knobby on the rear, so we'll see what fits on the back of this bike. Battery range so far feels like it's going pretty good on this thing. I'm not going to disclose a number. We just put it in a brutal sand track test, but this is going to be in the lightweight shootout, so we will disclose what the final range numbers are when we do that test, and that's coming up really soon. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions on the XE Pro S, and we will work to address them in future videos. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.